Hi, everybody, and welcome to episode 11 of the Getting to the Core podcast. So, it's a Facebook Live about Ask Me Anything about truth and honesty. So, big theme truth and honesty. And this month at Core, it's about truth and honesty with ourselves and with others. Last week, the episode 10 was about truth with somebody was speaking about their truth with themselves, things that needed to change in this person's life. This was a career change. We were talking about a career change. So it can be being truthful with yourself about something that's maybe not working in your life, or it can also have to do with truth with others. Yeah. So, I have some questions here that people have written in. Um, to tell you the truth, I'd like to start actually with a presencing. I need it. I am a little bit rushed, so that's telling you the truth that I'm a little bit rushed and I feel a little uncentered. So, I'm going to just take a moment and I invite you to take that moment with me. Just take a moment if you can, if you're not driving, just to close your eyes with me. And to sense whatever you're sitting on, the couch, the chair, and sense that holding underneath you, possibly behind you. And just taking a moment to just become present, alive, awake, and receptive to what's happening in this present moment. You know, that's our first and foremost truth, is what is here. So noticing what is present in the body. So, I have some butterflies in my stomach, a little tension in my shoulder, and I also feel this coolness on my skin. My hands are nice and cool, that feels good. And I'd like to invite you to just find something that truthfully just feels good in your body. And breathe into it. Might be a place on the body that just feels solid or good. And let's start there. Let's start, with what's present. Yeah, so there often is, like in my case, there's like kind of an unpleasant, nervous feeling in the stomach and a really solid feeling in my butt, like where I'm feeling the chair. And it's always good to start with something, that's good, that's solid, and then bring that to what might be not so solid, like, and then we can arrive here. So, um, let's start with one of the questions. So I'm going to start with a more simple question, which is not that simple, but anyways, it's from Jen and it says, is there ever a time where you shouldn't speak your truth to someone else? For example, when you know that that truth might hurt them. Now, this is a really good question, isn't it? And not that easy to answer. Like most questions, they're not that easy to answer. um, so generally, the truth shall set you free. Yeah. Um, Generally, I personally am all for speaking the truth. Um, Now, what is the truth? Yeah, like that is a big, big, big question. And where does the truth come from? Does it come from my what we call a core defended self or survivor self? Which is always, when I speak that kind of truth, it's always defensive, sort of fear-based, it's the truth of our defenses, but it's not really the truth. Yeah. And we can feel it. We're tight when we're in that place. We have an agenda. We're like judgmental, often blaming. So I could say something like, well, my truth is that you are really annoying. So that isn't the truth. Yeah. That is speaking like a, yeah, one could say that's how it might feel like it's the truth, but it's not. Yeah, the truth would be more something like, I am annoyed, or I am angry, or I'm noticing I'm having a trigger coming up. So um so I hope that makes some kind of sense. It's like there's a relative truth, and then there is a bigger truth, and we want to come mostly from our healthy self. So this question is is there ever a time I shouldn't speak you shouldn't speak your truth to someone? um, is first of all, where does the desire not to speak the truth, where does this come from? Does it come from your healthy self, and you are discerning that this truth that you're speaking is only going to create harm and no good, and that's why you're not speaking it? Or are you not speaking it to protect yourself? Um, because we often do that. We often not speaking our truth because we don't want the conflict. Um, we don't want, we don't want to be rejected. We don't want to get the other person upset. Or we're taking responsibility for the other person and say they can't handle it, or, so that's the discernment process, I would say. Is it, where is this coming from, your desire not to speak the truth? Is it from a self-protection, um, from the survivor self that is either taking too much responsibility for the other person, or just wants to protect itself? Like I'm a type like that. Like, I really don't like people to be mad at me. Right? It's like, this is uncomfortable for me. And so I often would like to withhold the truth because I just don't want the conflict, and I don't want the other person to be mad at me. Now, that is not a time when you shouldn't speak the truth. I, in that case, should speak the truth, yeah, in the most loving and caring and attentive way that I can, and responsible way that I can, but still speak it, yeah. Um, Now, is there ever a situation where it may be too much for the other person, or it would just create so much pain and it's not necessary? There could be. Um, I would say 95% of the time it isn't. But I could imagine there's a time when it's maybe not the right time right now, because the other person is very fragile, uh, just about to go into something, like into a big chemotherapy or something, or is going through, their mother just died and they can't hear right now that whatever you want to tell them. Yeah, so it's like it's too much for the person because they're in a very, very fragile state. Yeah. um so that I could imagine. So, but it's kind of, yeah, again, it's like I would say the important thing is to discern where this comes from, the desire not to speak the truth. um Tammy, you're saying, that's me. I want to avoid conflict. That's what I'm connecting into right now. Yeah. So if it's about avoiding conflict, I would say speak it. Yeah. And I've done this hundreds of times. Yeah. Like, naturally, I don't like conflict. And, there's some people that are more like, they kind of almost love it. I have a girlfriend like that. She's kind of waiting for the conflict. She's like, let's engage, let's do it. I'm not naturally like that. And so I'm naturally want harmony and compassion, and so it's hard for me to say something that's difficult, that the other person could be upset by. And so I've breathed into that many times in my life, and it has always been good. Even if there was conflict and the person was mad at me at first, I just had an experience that way 3 times last week, like, And I make sure before I speak that I'm as much connected to my healthy self as I can, that I'm resourced, that I'm supported within myself, and that I communicate as much responsibly from my own, standpoint without making the other person wrong, and be as compassionate as possible while still being assertive and speaking my truth. And it's always been good. Like, I have never had a situation where I spoke the truth to someone in that way and it didn't turn out somehow good in the end, not immediately. But so that would be my point about this. Um, Stephanie, I haven't seen you in years. How lovely that you're here. So, yeah, wonderful. Okay, so let me go to another question. I hope that was helpful. So, most of the time, I would say, speak your truth, like in the way that I just spoke about. Yeah. Yeah, it's been so long, Stephanie. If you're on the podcast, somebody just came on that I haven't seen in years, and I'm so happy to see her name pop up here. So that's my truth right now. Um, Anyways, let's go to another question. So here's another question about this is when somebody else doesn't speak the truth. So um, this is anonymous and says, I've been lied to over and over again by someone I love. How do I ever truly trust anything they say or do? Yeah, this is another one. This isn't easy, is it, with the truth speaking thing? So here's another situation. So somebody else doesn't speak the truth to you, and you find out, and in this case, it sounds like over and over and over again. I find out. This is often the case if the other person is an addict, for example, of some sort. Like where um, they don't tell the truth. So, for example, I am a child of an alcoholic, right? And my mom, who was that alcoholic, who, by the way, is a recovering alcoholic now, and we have a wonderful relationship. But when she was in the throes of it, she lied to me constantly about that. She would always say, "No, I didn't drink. No, I didn't." And part of an addiction, part of the whole story of addiction is lying and secrecy, right? So that's often when someone over and over and over lies to you because they're kind of lying to themselves. And if they spoke the truth to you, then the whole number's up, and this is a very, very, very difficult situation. Yeah. Um, yeah. So, what do I do about this? How do I ever trust? Well, there's kind of like a whole process that goes on with that, with trusting someone who's lied to you over and over again. So first of all, there's like saying that so I've noticed you've lied to me over and over again, and I do not feel trustful anymore. I feel like this trust is broken, and I feel mistrustful towards you. Yeah, like, so first of all, is acknowledging that the trust over here is very low because of what happened, if that is in fact what happened. So the first thing is to just see if this is even true, right? That the other person lied. But if that is true and the other person has lied to you over and over, as it says here, then as first of all, just to acknowledge, I have a low level of trust, and letting the other person know, are you willing to rebuild this trust again? And if you are, what would it take for you? What do you need? Like, if you have been lied to and you want to rebuild trust again, after you acknowledge that there is no level of trust or a very low level of trust, to say, and this is what I would need to rebuild the trust again. And are you willing? So, so there can be things like, I need a complete disclosure of, like, what is there anything else you haven't told me? This is often what is needed, right? I need disclosure. And are you willing to disclose this to me? Which, by the way, I would, if this is a permanent situation or long-term situation, I would definitely get a therapist or somebody else to help you with this. Yeah, for this disclosure situation. Or it might be something like, I need you to check in with me if we're getting anywhere near a situation where this could happen again, I need certain check-ins or something, so there's something to really look at. What is it that you need to rebuild the trust? And generally this takes quite a while to rebuild the trust, because we are if we have been lied to, um, and we know we have been lied to, um, like I remember this took me years with my mother, years, like of constant experience of truth, and I can trust, and it's like it builds over time again, because that little girl inside of us, in my case it really was my little girl, but it's like if it's in an adult relationship, it's just the inner child of us is very guarded and very scared, to ever trust that person again. So the healthy self adult part of us, um, kind of needs to discern, is it safe now to open again? Like, can we open slowly? Can we open tentatively? And what do we need in place um, to open again? And to sort of make that little girl feel safe, like we're going this far and not further, kind of, there's a whole process this is why we're so into truth and honesty here at CORE, because when we're not truthful and not honest and literally lie to somebody else, it has such a cost. Like, it really costs us intimacy. Yeah. And we all do it. Like, the truth is, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I have lied many times in my life, so it's not, and it wasn't always conscious, but it's kind of the easy way out, because when one is afraid of conflict and consequences of speaking the truth, it's just easier to do a little white lie and da 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 da. And it really creates mistrust in relationships, and it never goes well. It just doesn't. Honesty is really preferable, even if it's hard, so um yeah, so when we over and over and over lie to somebody else, it just takes a long time to rebuild the trust again, and it's a rocky road, and but it definitely can be done. Like, it definitely can be done, and it has been done. I've seen many couples where that has been done. I've watched my friends where it has been done. I have that story with my mother, it's like, so there's a healing with my mother in that situation for me. So I know it can be done, and it's a process. Yeah. So, yeah, if we're not, hi, Eudora too, hi, sweetheart. We have the English crew here. Yes, if we're not truthful and honest, it costs us. It actually, it's beautiful that you say that, Eudora. It's actually costs us more to be dishonest than to be honest. This is my experience personally. Anytime I haven't been honest, it's a total mess. And I don't feel good. It just feels so icky inside, I feel contracted, and it feels so good to be honest, because I think that is our true nature. It's like our true self, who we really are, is good, right? We are essentially good. And I think this has a lot to do with this truth and honesty thing. And so we can trust what's truly happening will ultimately set us free to that goodness. Yeah, even if it's conflict and painful and we have to hang in there with ourselves and others, it's like ultimately it's going to lead to something good. And ultimately, not speaking the truth and lying to ourselves or being in denial to ourselves or others is only going to lead to something not so good. It's not a good road. So, and we kind of all know this, and yet it's really difficult, isn't it? So, I hope that was helpful. It's a process to trust again with someone who has lied to one over and over again, and it's not easy. And I would definitely recommend to get help, um, and consistent help with the situation, to build new habits, to bring honesty into this relationship. Yeah. Um, and here's another person saying, I'm struggling with speaking my truth to my sister. We have a very complicated relationship. The dynamics of our relationship are based on very old family patterns and structures that I am currently working really hard to redefine. I am the oldest and have always been the caretaker. Recently, I've had to put up some boundaries around my time spent with my sister and the use of my house as her refuge during a very tough personal time. This has felt so difficult to even have the boundary, but it's not being honored and I feel stuck. How do I continue to honor my boundaries with my family without feeling so bad and scared to tell them? Oh, this is another juicy question. So I totally get that too. Isn't that so understandable? Like, how do we have healthy boundaries and still, this is a good question, without feeling bad and scared? So I think the first thing is to feel bad and scared is the truth, right? It's just like saying something like that, like telling a family member, I need a boundary, like, like I need less time with you. Yeah, I need more space from you, or I, would like you not to come over to my house. It's just really hard, right? To like if it's too much, like if we need more space, yeah, and we need the other person to back off in a certain sense, yeah. And that is just a really difficult thing to say. So first of all, it's natural that one would feel scared to do that or that it doesn't feel so good, yeah. And also that's actually your truth, yeah. The truth is I feel scared right now to talk about this, and it feels, like you said, bad, or another word would be maybe uncomfortable, or just to really notice what does it actually feel like. So if I imagine speaking this truth to my sister, what do I feel? What is my body? What's going on in my body? Yeah, what's going on in my heart? What is, and the experience might be fear. It might be nauseousness, or it might feel scary. It might be like, oh, tension in the shoulders, or like, so first of all, just to acknowledge that I am scared. Yeah. Um, and then just being compassionate. This comes back to, I think this was our theme in February, I believe, compassion, like to be like, oh, this is hard. Yeah. It's hard to have this conversation, and this is scary for me. Yeah. Probably scary again for your inner child. Yeah. That wants peace with the family and harmony with the family. And then you could also extend that compassion to your sister, because in this imaginary conversation that you're going to have with her, you can imagine this is hard for your sister too. Yeah. So it's never easy to hear that somebody wants to spend less time with you. Yeah, or wants you less over at the house. Yeah, this is not an easy thing to hear for anybody, I believe. Yeah, so it's like, yeah, this is hard for me, and this is probably also hard for my sister, just to go, oh, this is difficult. Yeah. And just to breathe kindness and compassion to yourself for this difficult situation, and for your sister, just like holding both of you. And um, that's a really good start, first of all, and to get support around this, if you do want to have this conversation with your sister, which seems like you do, to get support around this conversation. Um, from your friends, from another family member, yeah, like to kind of like, if you really do want to have this conversation and you're just dragging it along and never actually have it, it could be good to have somebody to hold you accountable to it. You say, okay, and you can call me before the conversation, and you can call me out right after, or I can even be there, depending on what kind of friend it is and how skilled they are at holding space. And so it's really good to not just go in it on in your head about it, how you're going to have this conversation and all the things that are going to happen, but to actually let somebody else hear it. You can practice it on somebody else, in the conversation, in like, how can I be truthful, like, and speak what I need, and also be compassionate. Yeah, like this is kind of the theme here today, like to be compassionate, loving, kind, and also truthful. They've got to go together. Yeah. If we're only compassionate, then we never actually say anything. And if we're only truthful, we can be harsh. Yeah. So if they go together, it makes for a much better conversation, right? And yeah, to speak what happened, like when you say something like, it's not honored, my boundaries are not being honored, so what is the fact around this, right? I don't know the actual situation, but it's always good to speak about a fact with as little judgment as possible, than how you felt about this, like, so I felt angry or I felt upset or I felt frustrated or whatever that is. And what is your need? Like, because I needed consideration or collaboration or whatever it was that you needed. Yeah. And then make a request, right? Like, would you be willing to, in your case, like whatever, I'm not sure what that would be in this. I don't know, have enough information about this, but it's something about like maybe come to my house on Tuesdays and Thursdays, or like something like a particular amount of time that you want your sister to come over. Yeah. And not like every day, and just speak, how about if we're doing, or before you come over, would you be willing to first call me and check in with me if it's a good time for me? Yeah. Or whatever that is that your boundary is. Yeah. So to be as non-judgmental and more speaking about your truth and your need, like what is it that you felt and what is it that you really needed. Yeah, that's kind of the deepest truth, isn't it? Like what need of ours was unfulfilled or is unfulfilled, and how can we communicate that with the other? Let me see if there's any more questions. We're on here. So I'll do one more question here, one more of the written questions. How to discern whether our truth is really truth? Isn't that great? Yeah. How can I discern self-righteousness, protection, survival strategy, old wounding from inner truth? Is there a recommended incubation period? Oh, I love that. Is there a recommended incubation period? There's a poem by Ken Wilber that's called Don't Whisper, and it implies we shouldn't censor at all because in some way it leads to action which actually gets to real truth. I just think I'm sitting in a place of what is my shit versus what is my golden relative to truth. But isn't that a great question? There's so much in this. We could sit here for hours, which we won't, don't worry. But how can I discern whether our truth is really truth? Very good question. And I'd say, as usual, there's no straight answer to it. It's like an inquiry process. We talked a little bit about this at the beginning of this podcast. The truth, like the bigger truth, yeah, or the truth of what we call healthy self, generally, even if it might be hard or difficult, it doesn't feel clinging, it doesn't feel graspy. Our defended self, our survivor self, always grasps and protects and guards, and it's tight. There's just like it feels like this. Yeah. And we're righteous and we're blaming and we're like, there's like a grip in it. Yeah. So even when we're speaking the truth, but it comes from this place, it doesn't really matter. It's not really the truth. Yeah, like sometimes this happens in politics. You can see this a lot in politics, where it's like whatever the liberals against the conservatives, or the whatever the issues are, right? Like and the like even people that have a really good truthful like cause or something, but there's so much tightness and so much, or almost like hatred for the people with the other opinion, that it's not the big truth anymore. Yeah, because it got hijacked. The big truth got hijacked by the defense and by the survivor self, and now it's like it's just used to be tight and to be righteous. Yeah, and there's no, it's kind of approaching the problem in the same way that the problem was there and was created in the first place. Yeah, so it's like the truth is always in some way, there's a certain quality of detachment to it. Yeah, there is a like um there's a this kind of movement. It's always more an invitation, and it's more detached than the little truth, like, which always kind of feels like, "Argh," and I gotta get my way, I gotta get my truth through you. And it always feels like imposing, or like a, yeah, like something that is, yeah, feels tight. That's I know this, like I know when I'm like, let's say with my husband Lee, right? When I feel like I've got something that he should see about himself, right? And it's just the truth. I'm seeing the truth, and he should change. And um, this never goes well. Even if I have the truth, even if maybe my observation is right, and there is something for him to see, if I come across like that, it never lands. For some reason, he doesn't really want to take that advice, and yeah, it just creates defensiveness. Yeah, and it really doesn't even matter if what I'm saying is true or not, because it can't be heard. Yeah, so the I think an incubation period is good. I love that word, incubation period. Like, to really, like, for example, yesterday I got two things, actually. Two things happened yesterday for me that were really triggering. Some some things happened at work with some people that really triggered me, and two things actually. And I could feel my charge, and I was like, I'm not going to communicate. I'm not going to communicate from this place, because if whatever I'm going to say right now, even if it's the truth, uh, it's going to be charged, and it's going to come from this. I can tell this isn't a good. So I did have an incubation period. I waited, and I shook. Like I walked around the block a couple of times, and I inquired into what do I need, what need of mine is not fulfilled right now. Why am I so upset? Like, it's like, so. And I often do that. I wait. If I know I'm triggered, this is not the right time to send that email or make that communication, because um it is kind of like a part of me is like, but this is my truth and I gotta get it out. and but it's not the truth, and I know it because I feel so charged, and I feel like I am having an agenda, and I'm having a attachment to my truth. Yeah, so I think that's a good way to judge it by, are you triggered? And then I could also say, I've done that too. I've said, I am not totally in touch with my healthy self right now. I'm triggered. Do you want to hear it now, or do you want me to wait until I'm in a less charged place, right? It's like, and I feel like there's still some truth in this, and do you want to hear it? Like, so it's like, I can do that too. Um, there's some place in me that still has an awareness that I'm triggered. So I'm not fully in the truth. Yeah. And so I like this. Yeah, there's the Buddhists have this beautiful saying about right speech. They really have this thing that let nothing come out of your mouth unless it creates more truth in the world, like in more compassion. So they recommend a long incubation period, like where you really discern, like, what is coming out of my mouth? What is this creating that's coming out of my mouth? Which I think is very wise and beautiful. And one could also take that too far, right? Like there's also something about just expressing myself, like, so I think it's like sort of a middle, it's a balance, between not putting a muzzle over my mouth and like and cramming down and just thinking myself into a pretzel before I say anything, and also pausing and presencing and looking, inquiring, where's this coming from inside of me? And often it is a good idea to wait to speak, before I can be honest to myself, and acknowledge to myself I'm upset, and maybe tell somebody else, but I would wait to speak this to somebody else, to the person that I'm upset with, until I have a little bit at least calmed down. So let's see. So yeah, we're on time. Um, Happy you guys all joined. Thank you so much. So I hope that was helpful, and I hope you can find that balance between compassion and truth. To speak your truth, the truth, a truth, with compassion and kindness for yourself and others. Sending you much love. Bye bye.